Today I'm joined by Nathan Myhrvold. Nathan is the former CTO of Microsoft, a co-founder of Intellectual Ventures, relevant to today's discussion on nuclear, a vice chairman at TerraPower, and of interest to me, principal author of Modernist Cuisine. Nathan, you wear a few different hats. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about, I guess, what the nuclear sector can learn from the innovation that has occurred in one of the most disruptive areas within tech, Silicon Valley. So Nate, a warm welcome to Decouple and a warm welcome to the Net Zero Nuclear Summit here at COP28 in Dubai.
Happy to be here.
Tell me a little bit about how you developed an interest in nuclear, and then we'll get into maybe some of the frustrations with the pace of innovation.
Well, before I was a software guy, which is what I'm known most for, being a former CTO at Microsoft, I was a physicist. I got a PhD in physics from Princeton University. And so I was very comfortable with physics and also very interested in technology of all sorts, not just computers. Computers is where I've spent most of my career, but interested in everything. So I approach it both from the perspective of physics and also how we can get serious about changing our energy system.
And tell me about that journey, though. You're working in computers for quite some time. How did you end up as vice chairman on TerraPower? I'm really interested in how you developed that interest.
Well, after retiring from Microsoft, I set up a company, Intellectual Ventures, where we did a lot of work in inventing in any area that we thought was really important, but we did a bunch of energy inventions. And if you look at the problem of climate change and how we can really revamp our entire energy system for the planet, it's impossible to ignore nuclear. Nuclear is a non-carbon emitting, incredibly efficient source of energy. In some parts of the world, like France, it's the dominant majority form of electrical generation. It clearly works. If you say we're in a climate crisis and you're unwilling to use something that clearly works and it's already available, then you're not really serious about it. Then you're saying it isn't a crisis. Now, conversely, if you look more deeply at nuclear, you find that nuclear has had a stagnation in its development relative to what could have happened because 30 some years ago, we got the willies. We got afraid of building nuclear plants. When I say we, I mean the United States, but the US being out of it also put a chilling effect on nuclear from all countries. And as a result, the pace of innovation that normally would have occurred in that industry didn't. If you took any aspect of life and said, okay, right, we're going to stop doing this for 30 or 40 years, the world could get really rusty at it. What if you stop building airplanes? No more airplanes. Oh, right? Or no more cars or no more, I don't care what it is. If you have an effective moratorium on not only the construction, but the intellectual capacity and the facilities that you would need for doing research and development, we shouldn't be surprised if it goes away. It's also true that people will look at nuclear as, even though it works very well today in places like France and many others around the world, the existing plants in the US work very well, have an excellent safety record. Despite that, people will say, oh, nuclear isn't really ready. And they'll say, well, we're worried about the waste, or we're worried about safety, or we're worried about something. And a lot of that potentially could be addressed by innovation. But if the largest single market for nuclear for most of the last 30 years stopped building plants, then you're not going to have that innovation.
I think we're entering into, it's not an unprecedented moment, but it's a bit of a political joke, but for the first time in as long as I can remember, and I'm younger than you are, the Republicans and Democrats seem to be agreeing on something, and that is that they both now like nuclear. It seems like there's a big opportunity moving forward here. What would be your wish list in terms of unleashing this innovation that you so desperately want within the nuclear scene, maybe within the U.S. or more broadly with the U.S. and its allies?
Well, I think the U.S. Political structure has made some very important steps in recognizing that if we need to change our climate system, nuclear is absolutely part of the solution. And leaving it out makes absolutely no sense. It's a great first step, but as we've just been discussing, there's 30 or 40 years of rot in the fact that our infrastructure for making things, for testing things, that's all gone to hell. We also don't necessarily have yet a regulatory environment or a willingness to say, yeah, we're going to go build new reactors.
Artificial intelligence is very much in the news these days. There's people talking about solving climate change with artificial intelligence. What does it have to offer nuclear? What are its limitations? What's the hype? What's the hope? Can you help us understand that?
Just because we are able to take this language skill that humans have, and finally, after 50 years of trying, we have computers that it's not as good, but they're getting there. It's impressive. That doesn't mean that suddenly nuclear physics is something that the AI can instantly take on. It's particularly true because the way ChatGPT and other large language models work is by taking billions and billions of examples and learning from them. We don't have billions of examples in nuclear physics. Periodic table only has like 100 elements. There's not that many nucleons. There's not that many things. We can't use the same approach. And of course, that isn't how we learn physics. We don't learn physics by looking at lots of examples. We learn physics by learning abstract principles, then learning how to apply those abstract principles to experiments and validating which parts of our knowledge is correct and which isn't. So I'm quite skeptical that success in one part of AI instantly means we can solve nuclear with it or solve any aspect of climate change with it.
There's data out of MIT looking at overnight construction costs of nuclear, and that the nuclear steam supply system is often only 20, 30% of the overall cost. It sounds like a lot of the innovation has to be happening in areas as routine and boring as the construction, those sorts of innovations. And I think that's probably an example of how AI is not going to swing to the rescue and solve all of those constructability issues.
Yeah, it's funny when you look at the cost of a reactor, particularly a large reactor that you're building entirely from scratch. You'd expect, okay, now that uranium, that's going to be like our big cost item. No, it's cement. There's a lot less uranium than there is cement, but the cement is way cheaper per pound. But boy, there's a lot of it. And you're right that the ability to build things efficiently and effectively is a key skill here. Nuclear plants have historically been treated as extremely complicated one-off construction projects. And those are way less efficient than something that you build many of. Mm-hmm. And so if you look at modern airplanes or trains or automobiles or any other very complicated large system, those have a huge amount of upfront engineering costs, but then they do that to make a much more efficient system downstream. And we've never had that economics working in nuclear the way we need it to. And I think our the next episode of Nuclear for the World has got to be based on more efficient manufacturing and construction of the plant, with some of it being on site and some of it being in factories.
So you now have, I think, more than a decade behind the helm to some degree at TerraPower. Lots of hope in that time. I'm sure some of that hope has been frustrated by events such as the export controls on the technology to China. But what's giving you hope looking forward when it comes to innovation in the nuclear sector?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is what you had mentioned earlier, that on both sides of the aisle in the United States, there is very strong support for nuclear. Perhaps not as strong and as widespread a rollout as we're going to need, but people have realized that nuclear has got to be part of the solution. And people in power, that is, have realized that. And I think that's a huge reason to be optimistic. Both TerraPower and other companies are making lots of progress on innovative designs. Characteristically, we've all chosen different technologies, different design points, which is great. You even have people working on nuclear fusion, which is an interesting technology. I'm a big fan of fusion working, but there's a giant difference between a technology that already works and powers most of the country of France and 15% of the United States. It works at an enormous scale versus something that's never once worked. Mm-hmm. But we will get it to work someday. It's extremely hard.
What advice would you have to young people wanting to tackle the climate crisis using nuclear and who are interested in innovation, if we want to just wrap this all up?
Well, the way mankind has always gotten out of crises is through ideas. Politics, warfare, things like that, at best, those protect the ideas that you have, and they protect your freedom and your ability to go capitalize on it. But it's ideas that matter. Whether it was our hunter-gatherer ancestors learning about agriculture and inventing agriculture, or any of the other technological innovations, whenever we're really stuck, we think our way out of it. It's not a popular perspective with some environmentalists who think that technology is the root of all evil, but every aspect of the way this is our interview is being done remotely, it's being recorded, it's playing back again. Every aspect of our lives has been touched with us thinking through it. The only way we're going to solve the climate crisis is by rolling up our sleeves and using our best ideas and our best knowledge to figure out a way forward. And nuclear engineering is absolutely one of those things. It's not the only thing. I mean, better batteries are also great. And there's a ton of other areas in engineering, but my chairman of TerraPower, Bill Gates, is fond of saying we just need a few more miracles. And there's some folks who don't like that because they want to say, oh no, we've got everything we need now, because they're afraid of saying we need miracles. But if the progress in technology or medicine or almost any other part of life shows us, we can go and create miracles. It takes lots of effort, it takes some money, it takes people dedicating their lives to try to go do it. But if you do, you can make huge inroads, whether it's against cancer or heart disease or against the climate crisis.
Okay, well, Nathan, thank you so much for making time. Your busy schedule. Appreciate you coming on Decouple and coming remotely like this to COP28 in Dubai. I'm sure people here would love to get to meet you, shake your hand, ask you more questions, but maybe we'll have you back for follow-up.